Good morning. Welcome to Unity Longmont Spiritual Center on the 5th of June, 2022. I'm Dava Money, the spiritual leader, and I will be speaking, and we have music from Christina Hildebrandt. So we will start with Christina.
Glad to be here today.
Thank you, Christina. Beautiful. It's at this time that we go into prayer together by taking a breath, being fully present in our bodies, our minds, and our souls. Beloved presence, everywhere present, within us and around us. We celebrate being together. We celebrate being alive. We celebrate being both human and divine. For this and so many more things, we are grateful. And so it is. And we will hear from Christina. Thank you, Christina. The privilege of being human. A friend of mine used that phrase a few weeks ago, and it resonated for me, and it's been circling in my mind continuously since then. So surprise, surprise, that's what I'm going to talk about. Here we are, each and every one of us here today, we're human. And there's so many gifts with that. And we won't forget there are also burdens or challenges with being human. So the gifts include, we have a body. We have this amazing body that works without us having to plan, oh, create a cell here, oh, release this there. And the longer we live, perhaps the more we are aware of our body and its actions, and what a wonderful gift that is. And we do develop some skills, including breathing, etc., that help us regulate our body when we get dysregulated. We have 5 senses. We live in a world where our 5 senses give us so much information. Much of that is at an unconscious level. And some of it, especially in those poignant moments when we smell a beautiful rose or see a sunset or pet an animal, those senses become much more conscious. They're gifts. We also have intuition. And that may be the language of the soul. We live in an amazing world. We know about our planet and our galaxy and so many more. And it's just breathtaking to even see what we can see, to imagine what might be. On this planet, there is such beauty. There is such aliveness. And our senses tune us into that. Our planet is a living organism. Everything, including ourselves, is part of that organism. And our planet has been calling out to us for quite some time. That would be many talks in and of itself. We're aware of it, though. And nature, oh my gosh, the magic of nature. And we're part of it. There's such beauty in that awareness. And we are creative beings. As humans, we create all the time. There's beautiful music, there's art, there's poetry, there's stories, so many forms of creation. And again, I think the soul is often involved in that process. And then, gosh, we have relationships. You know, all kinds of relationships. We have neighbors, we have family, we have friends, we may have children, we have ancestors, we have pets. Each and every one of those relationships calls us to be our highest good. Each and every one of those relationships invites us to practice loving kindness. And as humans, we are called to be of service. Service can be anything from opening a door for someone, to saying hello to someone who's been lonely, to delivering a meal, to feeding our own families, to taking the dog for a walk. If we stop and think about it, most of what we do can be a form of service, sacred service. So we can choose to use all of these wonderful aspects of being human. We can choose to be aware of them and express gratitude. This friend who said the privilege of being human also said another phrase that stuck with me: courage over complacency. We are in a time of transition, I think, on our planet. There's a lot going on. And it's easy to become somewhat numb to it or complacent with it. And it may be helpful to remind ourselves and each other that we also have this divine courage to step up and do whatever we personally are called to do. And again, that might just be offering a smile. The word privilege is pretty charged right now. We hear it in different contexts than we may have been aware of before. We are each invited to assess, acknowledge, be aware of our own personal privilege. Privilege accorded to us because of our race, because of our status, because of our wealth, because of our families, because of our safety. So I'm going to focus on privilege as being a gift that we are accorded. And when I'm talking about having the privilege of being human, we are accorded that gift by God. I believe, this is my own personal belief, that before incarnating in this life, we chose to be a human. We chose to be on this planet, knowing that this life would be both challenging and amazing. So when my own life gets to be really difficult, I will stop, take a breath, and remember, I chose this when I knew more than I know now. And that gives me solace. So again, my own personal belief is that we choose some attributes we're going to incarnate with. We choose some inclinations and proclivities. And we choose certain experiences that we plan to have. And we may choose, in a sacred contract, with other souls to be connected in this life. I believe those are choices with enough space to make choice as a human being during our life. I don't think things are necessarily predestined for us. I think we have the responsibility to be here and to do our best. And what is our best? Part of our best, I believe, is evolution. To evolve, to choose to cultivate practices and ways of being that help us evolve, to help our brains evolve, to help our bodies evolve as a species, to help our consciousness evolve. Gary Zukav suggests we're also helping our souls evolve. So how do we do that? First of all, we recognize that as humans, we have a belief and perhaps an understanding that by choosing to come here, we experience a deep and profound separation from that which we are, from that which is all, from God. And as humans, we have this illusion that that separation is total, and we suffer for it. There is nothing wrong with that suffering. That suffering becomes longing. And that longing is for a reunion. And the more aware we are of that, the more consciously we can choose what we union with. We seek reunion many different ways. If you look at romance, what is romance? It's two people looking to belong, looking to be seen and witnessed and loved. And it's beautiful. And if we, in that union, believe we have fulfilled our mission, we may get disgruntled in that relationship and forget that, oh, that's just one path to reunion with God, with all that is. Some of us may choose to fulfill that need through careers, through different personality identities, the bohemian, the genius, the whatever. There's nothing wrong with any of these choices, any of these paths. It's all part of being human. And I have been, as some of you know, working with belonging for the last few years. And one of the things that strikes me is that we need each other. We need tribes. We need to feel loved and accepted by others in addition to ourselves. That's part of our humanness. It also ensures the future of our species. The other thing that has struck me is I love words. And so when I see the word belong, I also see long to be. And that is what our journey is about, I believe. It is a journey of being. Our humanness provides us so many ways of doing, and those are delightful or sometimes hard. And they are fine. They are good. It's all part of our journey. Our soul bees. It just bees. It is. And it reminds us and it calls to us that we can take our humanity and join with our divinity in order to be. So before I get into some ways we can do that and some stages that we may go through, I want to share with you a poem. There's a poet called John Rodell, and I discovered him at the beginning of the pandemic. I think a lot of people did. I think in some ways he's our modern Rumi. So in this life, which can be hard, we hear the word depression a lot. There's clinical depression, and then we just use the word depression to mean sad or deeply disappointed. One of the things I learned a few years ago is when we feel disappointed, what we may actually be experiencing is we are not living our appointed life. So when we feel that deep disappointment, let's pause and go, wait a second. What do I want to be in this moment? What do I want to be in this life? So there's some length to this poem, but I think every line is important. When we say, I have depression, what you seem to hear is, I'm fragile. There is nothing fragile about us. We are the weathered seaside cliff that has survived a century of crashing waves and well-meaning stomping tourists who only came to visit to see if the ancient lighthouse on top us still works. We are the bright wildflower that somehow finds a way to push itself up through the cracked and dirty sidewalk outside of your apartment building. We are the blind songbirds who still finds the perfect lyrics to their hymn at sunrise, despite the fact they don't know what the breaking dawn looks like. We are the heart born with the gaping hole in the center of it that we have turned into a wind chime to signal to the world that we are more than a murmur. We are the wandering ghosts in your house, banging on the walls every night until the bridge of light we have been looking for reveals itself to us. We are the grief-stricken comedians who have fashioned their suffering into a hammer that they use to hit your funny bone with. We are the miners who have spent the better part of our lives digging through deep, dark caves in search of a long-lost hidden vein of mercy. We are the last orange leaf on the bare elm that refuses to give into the chew of winter, because spring is always just a single breath away. We are the clouds above you that keep molding, breaking, shape-shifting into whatever we need to look like in order to make it to the next horizon. We are the broken pieces of an ornamental vase that have been glued back together with wabi-sabi gold to make us beautiful. We are the winter-ravaged tree that will contort itself into whatever shape that will keep it from snapping in two. We are the war-torn church who is adorned in bullet holes and in ruby red stained glass in equal measure. We are not fragile. We are the incomplete yet whole. We are the lost yet purposeful. We are the rubble and the garden. We are the besieged and the hopeful. We are the rock in the rapids that has been polished. We are the sin and the redemption. We have learned to grow fruit trees in a shadow land of obscured light and hungry vultures. We have screamed into the bathroom tiles until our voices turn themselves into a crutch that we use to lift ourselves back up. We will fight like hell to stay here with you on earth, no matter the invisible knife that's been twisting in our stomach for years. We are the rainbow amidst the tempest, and there isn't a single thing fragile about us. We are not fragile. We are not flawed. We are imperfection and perfection. We are human and we are divine. So, as some of you know, I've been working overtly with authenticity since about 2004 and developed 11 spiritual courses. And the point of those is to help us evolve on this journey. And one of the first things I learned is looking in the dictionary. The word authenticity means autos, self, icity, tools. I read that as tools for ourselves. The word authenticity is used a lot, and we know what it is. We recognize it in somebody. We recognize it in ourselves. If we live long enough, and many of us are blessed to do that, we move increasingly from performance to authenticity. So I want to talk a little bit about how we go through different stages. And I think that we are led by soul. We are never separate from our soul, even if it's not in our awareness. We also, as humans, have an ego. And it can be very active and it can be misguided. But it is not something to be annihilated. It is something to be embraced, and it needs a new job. It believes its job is to keep us safe, and it infers that almost anything is a danger. So we work with our soul, we work with our ego, we work with our mind, we work with our body, we work with our emotions. We know that in this life, because it can be hard, it is sometimes human nature to numb, to minimize those emotions. It's important we recognize they are a gift. They are a navigation system. They're our own personal GPS. So let's look. The first stage is rules of engagement. Totally ego-driven at that stage of our life. And we are very rule-oriented. We hold on to rules at that time to let us know what is okay, what isn't, what keeps us safe, what doesn't, what allows us to fit in. And during that stage, our emotions can become robotic and numbed or very erratic. The thinking at that time is very black and white. Our words are very black and white at that time. And we have a tendency at that stage to accrue things to help improve our self-esteem, because our self-esteem is fragile. We aren't fragile, but our self-esteem is fragile at that time. The relationships we have at that time are based on using each other. This doesn't sound pleasant, but it's natural, it's normal, it's okay as a stage. At this stage, we give because it's a rule to give. We much prefer to receive. We need to know these rules for safety. At this stage, we choose a job because it pays us, not a career because it fulfills us. We are vulnerable at this stage, and this stage could be at any age, to fundamentalism because we want those rules. A question that can lead us out of this stage is, do I need to know the rules before I engage in life? And what we need to relinquish is a deep and primitive narcissism. Me first. So, stage 2, hero worship. This is when we come a little bit out of ourselves and look around the world and find others that we believe can lead us, that we admire. And we use them at some level, even if we don't know them personally, for energy, affection, love, acceptance. We learn there that there's a rule that giving is better than receiving, but we honestly give in order to receive at that stage. We provide a service at that stage because we're supposed to, and our heroes do. Having these heroes serves us at this stage. We are drawn to heroes like Buddha and Jesus and sports figures and others who have a big Twitter following. The development of our own character becomes more important in this stage. We start to think more abstractly. We begin to use metaphors. Imagination and dreaming become more important. And those can be represented in art, in music. We start to create more in this stage. Our gifts and talents become more obvious to ourselves and others. We become more in charge of our own behavior at this time. We begin to recognize right and wrong, less rule-based and more based on what is the effect on ourselves and others. We still have struggles around pride and humility at this stage. So we will move from that stage to one of greater sharing. What we have to relinquish is complacency and move into courage. The next stage is collaboration. That's really when we begin to see other folks and we begin to work with other people and create with other people. We begin to develop and cultivate desire from within, recognizing that is a force of love, a divine force of love, and we follow it. We are going beyond our five senses at that time and developing and using our intuition more. We may still have our consciousness interrupted frequently by what seems to be going on in life, but we maintain more and more a sense of who we are, what our place is, and who others are. We begin to notice authenticity. This is where it becomes more obvious. And we consciously enter into spiritual partnerships with people, intimate partners, friendships, and community. What we have to relinquish in order to move to the next stage is our remaining forced self-sufficiency, that ongoing belief that we can do it on our own, because we can't. A question that we can ask ourselves is, how am I a part of the whole? And how do I resist being part of the whole? Because we still got an ego. We still have this sense of separation. We're just working with it more kindly. Stage 4 is presence. We experience it. So we have those oceanic oneness experiences. We are less distracted by the past and the future and more in the now. We begin to recognize our own individual purpose in this wholeness and acting on that. Our ego is less driven and is actually willing to kind of step back a little bit. It doesn't go away, but it's not quite as involved. We are more aware of our soul and acting on that guidance. We have periods of what the Zen call chop wood, carry water, where there's flow and there's grace. We are moving from human doings more into human beings. And we have this recognition We cannot do without spirit, and spirit cannot do without us. Spirit's experience includes all that we are and experience. That's a big leap. So we understand that we stay present in the moment, that we remain conscious, that we deal with what is, or we suffer. We have a greater awareness of choice there. Doesn't mean that life isn't still hard. It can still be hard and majestic. Our experience of time shifts significantly during this stage. We understand time to be a human construct, an illusion that our ego has needed. And so we experience more timeless moments, those flow times. Our judgments of ourselves and others are reduced significantly. It's here that we truly understand Namaste. The divine in me recognizes the divine in you. We have to relinquish the last vestiges of believing we are separate from God, including our old belief that death is a separation of some kind. So the question we ask is, how do I still keep myself separate from spirit? And what do I still fear? Stage 5 is presence. We become it. We maintain living in the moment. Awareness is continual and no longer interrupted by ego. We tend to ego. We notice that everything is essentially love, including ourselves, and that love is the power of life. It is what everything is made of. We have a recognition that the past, the present, and the future are happening simultaneously. We have a sense of that. We have an awareness that even things that appear solid are not, that everything is vibrating, including ourselves, and that we influence because of the way we vibrate. And we have more choice about how we do that by embracing and being loved, by being kind, by monitoring our thoughts, cultivating wisdom and love. There is a total integration at that stage of being human and being divine. This is the path of the mystic. The journey back to that which we never left, but as humans we believed we did. So that's a little bit of my belief. I hope you take what serves you and leave the rest. And I invite you at this time to go into a self-guided meditation as we listen to Moonlight Sonata. And we'll pull that up in a moment. I invite you just to be aware of what you experience and to be aware of your breath. And now we will hear from our own beloved musician, Christina. Thank you for that heavenly music. It's at this time that we go into our donation of love and light by again taking a breath, becoming aware of the love and light that we are within us. We feel this growing, and we are willing to share it and allow it to be shared with whomever needs it. We have no judgment. We do have gratitude. We find in this moment that sharing is also receiving, one and the same. Placing our hands on our heart, we say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. And we will finish with music from Christina.